Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Nairobi Health Show with Tevia Feng, who is a master in Qigong. And right away, you'll probably notice that we don't see Tevia, but we will hear him. And as a matter of fact, Tevia, that is a great place to start because there's a very specific reason why you're not showing up on the video today. So welcome. Thank you for being on the podcast. And let's just jump right in with why the video looks a little different than we normally do.
Well, thanks for having me, Dave. Years ago, I joined a Taoist sect, and we made an agreement that you'll never become famous and never promote yourself, but promote the art instead. So the art of Qigong that we do. And so rather than, what's commonplace in Qigong and yoga are people promoting themselves rather than the actual art itself. So that's my mission, is to promote the art of Qigong through White Tiger Qigong. And so we promote the students, the teachers that teach, and the students that are in it as well. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Well, that's a beautiful answer. And I have taken no such vow. So I will be the capitalist swine here who is taking credit and being public with my image and take the fall for both of us for my pride.
No, it's not like that. It's not about that at all.
I know. I just wanted to have a little fun with it. Tevia and I spoke for a few minutes before the podcast, and I'm really excited to speak to him. And originally, actually, I mentioned to you, Tevia, I assume you're from the Orient, just from reading your bio and from a lot of your base of business and whatnot. But tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how you arrived at where you're at.
I grew up in the U.S., born and raised in the U.S., and I was born with chronic illness, and my father didn't want me to be on medication my whole life. And so he introduced me to a master who taught me through Qigong, how to strengthen my organs, strengthen my body, concentrate my mind. And so I persevered through that practice. Fast forward, when I was about 19 years old, I was in a brutal car accident. Doctors told me I had to have surgery on my spine. Wow. There was no way around it, my knee. And I went to my master. I said, I don't want to have surgery, but I don't know what else to do. He said, just try this simple Qigong exercise. So I did this simple Qigong exercise for 5 minutes to 10 minutes a day. Now, 4 years later, some might say that's a long time, but I never went under the knife. 4 years later, I have a supple spine. My spine is in better shape than most people I know half my age. So that really was a testament to how powerful this Qigong is. And I continued that throughout my life since then. So I don't know if you want me to tell you the rest of the story, but
well, I do. But before that, let me jump in with a little bit more detail for everyone listening. From Tevia's bio, it says he's the founder of White Tiger Qigong. And by the way, I'm sure I'm slaughtering my pronunciation. You say it beautifully, of course. Is it Qigong? How do you say it?
Yeah, I'm using the standard Mandarin pronunciation, Qigong. And that's okay. You can call it Qigong, Qigong, whatever you want. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing, but yeah, it's spelled Qigong in Pinyin, Mandarin Pinyin. Yep.
Okay. And again, from this statement from the bio, he's on a mission to help people transform and maximize their potential and increase global healing. So this is not just a matter of martial arts as a self-defense type of a method, like many people are familiar with from the movies and from popular culture. You've already told a story here of healing. And so for those of you listening, this is why we're covering this episode on a health podcast, because this is a health podcast. And so the natural healing methods here and power that Tevia is going to talk about is what I'm very interested in, and glad that you have taken that approach. I think it's very interesting, and I can't wait to dive in more about it. So that's a little bit more about who Tevia is, and so you went from that background starting off with chronic disease, having the terrible car accident, but dealing with these things with natural methods through the practice that you were taught.
Yes. Well, then I was asked to go to China to work at my master had a free Qigong clinic in China, in Guangdong province, which is in southern China, right next to Hong Kong. And he asked me to go work there in his clinic, treating patients. And so I was nervous. I was intimidated. Who's going to believe this? This young, American white kid is going to be able to do anything. But he said, no, if they know you're with me, you're fine. They're going to believe you. So my first patient, he was in his 70s. He was dying of liver cancer. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't smile. He was really miserable and suffering. Wow. And within 3 days of practicing this medical Qigong with him, medical Qigong exercises, teaching him, he was able to eat, he was able to sleep, he was smiling. He invited me into his home and treated me like a family member. And that's when I knew right then that this is what I want to do the rest of my life. It was that so rewarding to be with someone who was suffering and to be able to help show them the way to lift them out of their suffering. And that really hit me in the heart really deeply. And it was just then that I knew that this is really what I love to do. So that's what I've been on the mission. Mm-hmm.
How old were you then?
I was in my late 20s. Yeah.
Okay. So that was really a transformative experience for you.
Yes, absolutely. Very much.
I've had another episode that heavily involved Qigong with Jessica Antwerp, who does wellness retreats. And she takes people to remote locations for, I believe it's a 7-day program. And they use Qigong as their primary methodology for taking people out of, their high stress situations into a retreat situation to try to deal with a variety of things, from chronic illness, stress, whatever. And so you're actually the second guest on this show out of 150 episodes now to talk about Qigong as a primary kind of a life discipline, so to speak. So
yeah, I mean, we have two primary programs that you can come into. We have an emotional balance program and a body balance program. And that is so you have Qigong to balance the emotions, really de-stress, get out of that. And you have Qigong to balance the body, like basic body aches and pains. Those are the main tracks where people really start with Qigong, or there are reasons to start with Qigong, because Qigong is one of my favorite things for myself, to deal with all the turmoil in life, the ups and downs. You have the pandemic, many people are out of work, or there's where I am, there's people literally starving because they have no work, no money. And how can you cope with these stresses of life? And Qigong for me has been the backbone for being able to cope with all of these stresses and emotions. Without it, I don't know where I would be today, actually. Yeah. Okay,
so let's talk about the background of this a little bit. You mentioned a link to Taoism here, and so there's obviously more. Again, there's obviously a perception, I think, among many people about martial arts that they're often a self-defense method, a great way to exercise, for example. And yet this sounds much more philosophical. It sounds deeper. It sounds like a religious element. Talk to us about that and the separation between, let's say, a dojo in a U.S. major city designed to keep kids fit. This is what you're doing.
That's a great question. So first, let me start off by saying there's 3,000 kinds of Qigong that are documented today, that we know of. Within those 3,000 kinds, there's 5 main branches. Okay, so once we can understand what those 5 main branches are, it's easier to navigate. So the 5 main branches are Taoist, Buddhist, Confucianist, martial, and medical Qigong. So, so you do have Qigong that's focused on self-defense, such as you were talking about, martial Qigong. This is actually not under that branch. This is under Taoist Qigong. Now, Taoism has also different branches. You have religious Taoism, which is not what I practice, and you have natural Taoism. So a couple thousand years ago, you had a guy named Lao Tzu, in English say Lao Tzu. He wrote a book called the Tao Te Ching, or as you say in Chinese, Tao Te Jing. And what this book is all about, harmonizing yourself with nature and following the natural way. So this is called Lao Tzu Taoism. And this is all based on nature. There's no hierarchy, where in religious Taoism, there's a hierarchy. Okay. So in natural Taoism, nature is the true hierarchy. So that is this style of Qigong comes from natural Taoism. It's all based on nature and natural principles. So I'll give you an example. The 5 elements is one. So you have the 5 elements: metal, earth, wood, water, and fire. And we have all of those elements within us, and our organs are related to different elements as well. So we're the microcosm of the macrocosm. That's how I could explain really in a nutshell about natural Taoism, how it works.
Very good. I've read the Tao Te Ching.
Great.
Yeah. Familiar. I actually attend a Sangha once a week, and I'm a meditator. So that's mostly from the Buddhist side, but there's so much in Eastern thought that is related. So that whole world and philosophy is interesting to me. I think it's powerful. I think there's a lot that many people in the West can learn from these ancient Eastern traditions. And I think that's happening, actually. I see in the United States, for example, more and more people becoming interested in spirituality and looking for answers maybe that they're not finding in the way they were raised or whatever the case might be, looking for something. And I imagine, Tevia, I'm just guessing here, I imagine you're seeing that. Are you seeing more Western thinking people take an interest in the more ancient Eastern arts that like you're practicing?
Absolutely. I mean, this is like coming and more common trend now that I'm seeing worldwide. Actually, they're in these times of crisis. People are turning to the ancient wisdom to find how to navigate through this. So I find it more applicable now than ever before. All of this ancient wisdom from the Tao Te Ching and so yeah, absolutely.
So along those lines, one of the things that's really on the uptick right now is mindfulness and meditation. And currently in the United States, the number of people practicing mindfulness and meditation has doubled in the last, I don't know the exact number, it's like the last 5 to 7 years, something like that. There's more people now who have a meditation practice in the United States than that practice yoga, for example. And so we are seeing a trend towards mindfulness meditation. And it seems to me that part of what you're doing is a moving meditation. Is that a correct guess towards what you're doing?
That's absolutely correct. It's a mindfulness practice, the entire thing. So what we do is we have this sort of meditation and movement. And so it takes a lot of interoceptive awareness. So that's like feeling what's happening in the internal body, feeling within yourself. And it really forces you to concentrate on what's happening in that very moment within you. And then also the proprioception, feeling how your body is moving in space, in the space around you. And then we are closing after a dynamic movement set of exercises. And then we go into a still meditation. We call it Qigong meditation. What's the difference between Qigong meditation and just regular meditation is that we have an intention, a specific intention in the meditation. So we use visualization coupled with breathing. So you harmonize the breath and the body and the movement of the body, or the stillness of the body. And then you harmonize that with your intention, which we call comes from the spirit. So body, breath, spirit is our mantra. Mm-hmm.
Body, breath, spirit. So when you say mantra, do you mean mantra like in the sense of transcendental meditation, like something you repeat?
That's a good question. No, I mean something in the sense that kind of like what we live by: body, breath,
Yeah,
spirit.
yeah. Something that is a foundational principle.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Now, what's interesting to me is you are on this podcast again, not promoting yourself. And for anyone who joined late, the reason we don't see Tevia is because he is not trying to promote himself. He's actively trying to not promote himself or gain fame through this practice. He's trying to promote the practice. Boy, I lost my train of thought there. But you are. I guess what I'm getting at is, what are you promoting? Here you are on a podcast.
Yeah.
And of course, you can't personally work with many of the people that would watch or listen to this podcast. And so is there a way that you offer Qigong through online portal or for people who are remote? I mean, not everyone can go to do you call it a dojo?
No, we have a school.
A school.
And yeah.
And not everyone can attend a school. You don't have them everywhere. So how do people practice who don't have a school nearby?
Well, White Tiger Qigong is currently one of the largest online academies in the world for Qigong. We have between 50 to 60,000 members. We have the largest directory of certified instructors in the world, with over 70 plus instructors. What I did is I worked with educational experts. I worked with a man with his PhD in education from Stanford University and a woman with her master's degree from Harvard University in online education to create the most comprehensive university-style curriculum that we could put online.
Interesting.
And that was the challenge, is like, how can you take an ancient practice, maintain the integrity of the practice, and then also be able to post it online where someone can learn with proficiency online? So that was the challenge. That's why I reached out to experts. What I've realized in life is I am just good at one or two things. I'm not good at a lot of things. So I surround myself with people who are much better at other areas of expertise than me.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure that served you well to have people who have devoted thousands of hours studying these areas of online delivery of content, etc. And so in the end, how did it work out? Is it an app? Is it something that people participate live, or do they press play on a video and participate?
Well, whitetigerqigong.com, Qigong.com. We have pre-recorded online courses, a series of them. We have for emotional balance. So we have specific courses for transforming anger into forgiveness. We have transforming anxiety and worry. And then we have courses on body balance, like lower back pain, upper neck and back pain, shoulders and stuff like this. And then we have like a mastery program for those who want to do a deep dive and get really serious and become proficient in the art of Qigong. Now, what's unique about my academy is that we fused cutting edge science with the ancient art of Qigong. So I worked with neuroscientists. I've also worked with sports science experts to create a really cutting edge curriculum that's really pertinent to the modern person. So we break down what might be intangible concepts or might be deemed as esoteric into something that's tangible, that someone can learn and really grasp. Because a lot of Qigong out there might seem a little woo-woo. And even to me, I think a lot of what I see seems a little woo-woo. And I'm a very results-oriented person. I want to do something and know I'm going to get the results at the end of the day. And I studied over 50 different styles of Qigong. And what I found is there was only a few that I found that were really going to bring me efficient, effective, tangible results quickly. And so I isolated these 3 different forms of Qigong, and I trained in them for a long, long time now, many, many years. and have now created a really beautiful online curriculum. We have in our master courses, we have live teachings once a week that are in addition to the pre-recorded courses. We have fascia experts teaching on fascia from sports science. We have Chinese medicine practitioners and doctors teaching Chinese medicine and how it integrates with the Qigong. We teach how to use the Qigong like a prescription, like medicine. So for body pain, for emotional balance, and chronic illness, things of this nature.
Describe body balance.
Body balance is basically, so we take a fascia framework. For those who are unfamiliar with fascia, fascia is this gluey, spidery web that encapsulates the body. It's right underneath your skin. It wraps around the muscles. It wraps around the organs. It wraps around the bones and becomes the bone itself. The bone is actually the hardest part of your fascia. They say we'll have to rewrite our anatomy books because in our traditional anatomy books, we have these isolated individual muscle groups where we found that that's actually not even true. Those are bound together and woven together through this fascia fabric that holds you together. So when one area becomes out of balance, you want to rebalance the other side. So let's look at something, for example, like sitting at a desk, which we all do. You sit at a desk, your front lines of your body, the connective tissue lines, are in a contracted position, where the back lines are in expanded or stretched position all day long. Now your fascia has memory, and it wants to make you an efficient human being, so it will start to shape and harden in that way. So what we do with the Qigong is we have specific movements to rebalance those connective tissue lines in the body so you can feel balance and relieve postural imbalances, relieve body pain, and live basically feel free. Because in my opinion, your body can be heaven or it can be hell. I want my body to be heaven in this lifetime.
Yeah, good. That's a great quote right there. And is there a mechanical way of dealing with the fascia? Like, for example, in a gym here locally, you can find a roller now in almost every gym, and people roll, and it's a fascia, type of exercise. And so in your practice, is this something that's mechanical, like physical? You're using something to actually directly contact and massage the fascia, or is it through the movement of your body that you're getting a fascial release?
Well, I love rollers, fascia rollers. I think they're fantastic. I use them myself, but it's not an end all. And what we do is we have these deep movements. Imagine, what I tell people the movements look like. Imagine Tai Chi meets yoga. Okay, you've got the deep twisting and stretching of yoga, but you've got this constant movement like in Tai Chi. And so what you're doing is you're massaging the fascia from head to toe through movement, twisting and untwisting, coiling and uncoiling. So when you coil and uncoil fascia, it generates an electrical charge that they can measure with a scientific instrument. In Qigong, we learned when you have tension to relaxation in the meridians, what we call the meridians, you generate qi. What I realized when I learned about fascia is that this so-called qi stuff is actually just electrical charges that we're generating in our body, in our fascia. And that's the catalyst for the movement of blood and circulation throughout the body. So when you have an area of the body where there's stagnation, let's say in the lower back, because you've been sitting all day, that you need to have those to stimulate those electrical charges in the body to get blood flow and circulation into the back and get that fascia malleable and heat it up and work it so it becomes more elastic-like. Yeah, and that's what we're doing with the Qigong essentially. Now, also to add to that, you have the fascia that wraps around the organs. And that can actually become tight and tense, especially when you go through emotions. Now, they found in fascia science that fascia holds and stores emotions as memories. And it can store as kinks in the fascia. So you could have a kink in your body, and you don't realize it actually could come from an emotion that's stuck, that actually gets stuck in the body. So we have emotions, and then we have physiological reactions. Just think about it like this. When the last time you got really angry or stressed, you probably tensed up, right? Yeah. That was your physiological reaction to the stress. And that creates that tension in the body. Now that compresses the organ. Now, when you start to have tension around the organ, now the fascia starts to harden around the organs. If you're sitting in that position all day, like you're sitting at your computer, you're stressed, you have anxiety, you don't get up and work that out. You hold it inside. And now the fascia starts to harden like that. And then you do it for years on end. It becomes a chronic problem, chronic pain. That's how we develop chronic pain a lot of times. People are unaware. And then they go and they take a pill to try to heal the chronic pain. And that doesn't work. It's just a temporary Band-Aid for a long-term. You need a long-term solution. That's where Qigong fits in really, really nice.
It's interesting. There's a doctor, I don't remember his name, but he wrote a book called The Emotion Code. And it's about this very topic. He has the same belief that emotions can be trapped physiologically in the body. And I've read the book. It's very interesting. You explained it a little bit differently and kind of come at it from a different point of view, but it's not the first time I've heard the theory.
Well, I've just written down that name of that book. I'm going to go buy it. I also read a book called The Body Keeps Score. It's a great book about how trauma is stored in the body. And so there's a lot of great literature, or there's a lot of great books, on the fascia and on the body and how emotions are stored in the body. There's so much great work out there. And it all ties into what we're doing, because the Taoists for thousands of years have been saying, this. So that's why I say modern science is finally catching up with the ancient wisdom.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I think it's a beautiful concept. And I think that people also are kind of waking up to the fact that, the modern healthcare industry, where people have essentially kind of given over the care of their body to experts who use pills and shots and surgery to solve problems. And of course, many people are now realizing, being preventive medicine and me being the expert on my body and using other experts as needed, of course, because we can't all, this is a team sport, being very healthy, longevity, living with peace, overcoming stress, dealing with stress. I shouldn't even use the word overcoming stress. We all deal with stress. None of us is going to overcome stress, not in my opinion. It's a lifelong thing. To me, that's kind of along the speaking Eastern philosophy here. When the Buddha, said that life is suffering, point number one of the Four Noble Truths, he didn't mean it's miserable and awful. He just, I think, meant there is suffering, and then the next 3 points of the Four Noble Truths are how you overcome suffering, identifying suffering, recognizing the causes of suffering, much as self-inflicted, and that is not self-inflicted, can also be dealt with in a very healthy way. But for those of us who think that life is just static, and we're going to arrive at some point where everything is great and it's just going to stay great, I just don't think that's reality. Life is ongoing. It's a river, right? And around every corner can be a new challenge. We don't know when we're going to have to deal with death at the most extreme side of a loved one, of ourselves. But obviously, talking about here living, it would be those of us who are living dealing with the death of somebody else. A car accident like you were involved in, those just come out of the blue. You were just going about your business one day, and suddenly life throws you a massive curveball. And so I don't know why I went off so much on that topic, but I just don't think that some people live with realistic expectations of how life works, right? That on a regular basis, there will always be difficulties, right? But it's how we deal with it that's so important. Now, this is your world, and so I've just given my little piece. But you're dealing with all these students that have their own stresses. They're going through their own challenges, right? And I assume you're presenting them with a daily practice.
This is a practice that you can use in your daily life. It starts to actually integrate into your entire life. So I'll give you an example. Like, you can use this practice anytime you have an emotional like imbalance, like you start to have excessive anxiety or worry, or you even start to get really pissed off and angry, you have this practice as a tool to help you connect with that emotion, feel it. We don't tell people to just ignore the emotion or suppress it. We connect with it and then release it and then let it go. And then we can reprogram ourselves, because we're literally programmable. We can reprogram ourselves with the antidote emotion, with the emotion that's going to be healthy for us in that moment. And so this practice integrates with your whole life. I can do, I might have a day where I'm like really stressed, and I'll need to do Qigong multiple times a day that day just to keep in balance. But that's what I do. And then what happens is you reset the nervous system. You start to master your own nervous system. A lot of people call it the autonomic nervous system. Well, in fact, now research has shown that we can actually hack the nervous system and control it through breathing techniques, through different meditations and movement. And so there's really, there's a powerful reason to do that. And so, when I speak about the nervous system, for those who don't know, you have the parasympathetic state and you have the sympathetic state. So you have rest and digest, which is parasympathetic. And then in the sympathetic, you have fight or flight. Now, we need a balance in between. But most people in the modern day are living in the sympathetic state, in fight or flight all the time. So they're burning out their adrenals. So many people I work with, so many of my students come with chronic fatigue because they're just burnt out. They've been burning the wick at both ends. And so that is one of the things that we need to address, and the Qigong does, is we start to tap into these deep breathing techniques coupled with this meditation and coupled with the dynamic movements. We're able to hack the nervous system, tap into that parasympathetic state, into rest and digest, and start to bring ourselves into homeostasis.
Okay. One of the things I've been dealing with, I got the sun coming in a window right here. This is the first time I've ever done a podcast at this time of day. So I've been kind of moving forward to get myself into the shadows. But I think the sun is up high enough now that I just got to kind of own it. But let me just adjust the curtains at least to try to not have so much sun on the side of my face. Let's see. All right. This is a really interesting world to me. And I won't keep you much longer. I know that I've had you here half an hour already. But along these lines, this issue of dealing with stress, one of the ways a lot of people can instantly relate to stressful situations is through analogies of road rage. Like for example, you imagine a person driving down the street. They're on the freeway. They're going fast. They're late for something. And someone cuts them off. So they're already in a very stressful situation. And then someone cuts them off, racing through the traffic, and they get angry, right? That's just normal. We all have had that. And that sense of anger in a high stress situation, we all know what it feels like. We've all been there, from being triggered one way or another. And yet we know that we can deal with it quickly and fairly easily, because let's say, for example, that the traffic slows down. This jerk that you were just so angry at ends up right beside you. And suddenly you look over there to give them a gesture. And on the other side, you see his pregnant wife in labor, and he's trying to get her to the hospital. Now, in that split second, the person goes from being highly angry at this person to being sympathetic, like instantly. It happens. The change physiologically, emotionally, all of a sudden, the person who was just hating on this person and had all this road rage is ready to, if they had a siren on their car, they'd turn it on and start parting the traffic and help this person get to the hospital, right? And I think this is an interesting story or way of thinking of it for two reasons. Number one, it shows that reframing situations or understanding situations properly often is a solution to high levels of stress. Not that everyone who cuts us off in traffic necessarily taking someone to the hospital. But on the other hand, we often do read much more into life situations than is actually there, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I alluded to earlier of the self-inflicted. Something happens and we overreact, or we react improperly, or we hold on to stress and negativity over something that we just never should have in the first place. And so maybe I'll just throw that at you as a kind of a talking point, not really a question in there. But the stresses of life, as you just talked about them, they're normal. They come. We never know when something is going to trigger us and cause us more stress, or maybe we're in a chronic kind of a stressful situation, as you mentioned earlier, of something from the pandemic, out of work, wondering where your next meal or paycheck is coming from. And so maybe I'll just have you speak to stress management as a final talking point before I let you go.
Well, I mean, you mentioned what I call cognitive restructuring, and I really liked your story. I might steal that from you. I hope you don't mind.
I stole it from someone else, so you feel free to take it and run with it.
But that is the perfect story to explain how cognitive restructuring can work. And we use that methodology within Qigong. We don't, when I learned Qigong, we didn't call it cognitive restructuring. But so when you go through that stress, one of the things we'll do, or that anger, okay, is you're going to breathe in and connect with that emotion. Because oftentimes we're actually avoiding the emotions, and that actually makes it worse. It exacerbates it. So we connect and feel that emotion. So we feel where it's actually physically living in our body. And that brings interoceptive awareness, and that brings mindfulness. So now we've brought mindfulness, we can put a physical location to where we're feeling that emotion. And now we're at a stage where we're mindful enough that we can now release it. So then we release it through an exhalation and maybe through a movement. And we also release it with the mind. We don't just say, okay, I'm releasing with an exhalation. I actually feel it coming out. I feel a release of this emotion as I breathe out, as I exhale. I breathe in, I connect with the emotion. I exhale, let it out. Breathe in, connect, exhale, let out. And when I feel ready, now I bring in the antidote emotion, which is the antidote for anger, as you were talking about, forgiveness or compassion. Okay. So forgiveness and connecting with that emotion. And we know to create emotional transformation, the antidote emotion, the feeling, the arousal of that emotion should be stronger than the arousal of the excessive or toxic emotion. Now, anger in the right amounts is actually healthy because it can be a catalyst for action. But in the wrong amounts, it's unhealthy and it reflects inwards and actually damages your own health. So that's why we do this. And then in the 5-element meditation, we connect with a natural element. So how many of you out there have been stressed and you go to a lake or a river or some body of water and you start to feel more peaceful? And so, and now science has proven that there's all types of benefits, health benefits to connecting with nature. So the Japanese have forest bathing or standing on the ground with your bare feet, just these things, or going outside into nature and connecting with that. And the Taoists have been teaching this for thousands of years. So with anger, we connect to the wood element. So I imagine myself in a forest. And I connect with it and I feel connected to that forest. If I don't have a forest near me, if I have one, I open my eyes wide and really connect with that forest and feel I can breathe that forest in. And that is going to help, nature is healing for the soul, what it comes down to. So, so that's.
Yeah, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Great stuff. And there is actually one other question that might seem so random. But first of all, are you in Vietnam at the moment?
Yes.
Okay. Are you familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh?
Yes.
Okay.
My sister lived with him.
Is that right? In Plum Village in France or where?
Yep. In Plum Village in France. Right now, he's living about a couple hours from me. By car.
And he's one of my favorite writers.
Yes, mine as well. I love
Oh, is that
technology.
right?
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked the question. And is he in hospice care at the moment? He's dying.
Well, my friend was with him about 6 months ago. The
Okay.
last I heard, I think it was about 6 months ago. And he said he wasn't speaking, but he was in his hometown where he's from. And so he's at peace. But he said he could still feel his energy. And it's just that powerful energy it brings peace just by being with him. And his book, Peace is in Every Step, a very influential book in my life. Yeah.
Beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. That was my next question. If you knew him, I was going to ask you to give people a recommendation for one of your favorites from him.
Yeah, Peace is in Every Step is my favorite. It really is beautiful. And you can apply it to your life. That's why I like books that you can apply.
Yes. And it's maybe one of the reasons why he's one of my favorite writers. He has a gift. I mean, for someone who grew up speaking Vietnamese and then learned English and then learned French and then learned German, but can write with such beautiful poetry and his poems and his writings are just amazing. So I'm glad to know you have that connection and have read his books. And I haven't read Peace in Every Step, so I appreciate the recommendation.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And tell people again how they find you. And it's White Tiger. Tell us the URL again.
White Tiger Qigong. That's Qigong, White Tiger Qigong.com. And check us out. We got ebooks. We've got online courses. You can hire an instructor for private training. We have emotional balance courses, body balance courses, mastery program, teacher trainings. It's all there. I'd love to have you guys. We have a great newsletter as well. So I'd love to provide all of your listeners a free gift, for an ebook, which I'll send to you later, and you can send to your listeners.
Well, that would be outstanding. And Tevia, thank you so much. It's been difficult to arrange this because of the time zone difference is pretty awkward between Utah and the United States and Vietnam. And so I appreciate you being flexible and making this work. I've loved the discussion. I'd hope to have you back on again in the future if you're willing to do another round.
Would love to. I had a lot of fun. It was great to talk to you, and thank you for making the time for me. And wishing you all the best.
Yeah, thank you. And for those of you listening, we'll be publishing show notes, and we'll take that gift that Tevia just mentioned and put it on there and let you all know about that as soon as we have it. And until then, this is Dave Sherwin wishing you health and success.